Today we're going to be starting the LS build series of my 5.3 that I'm going to be putting in my caprice. So I've already got it torn down, and today we're going to be starting by pulling the pistons and then rebuilding it by new piston rings and new rod bearings. So here's the motor. I've already got one of the pistons and push rods out. Here's the motor. As you can see, I've already got one of the pistons and connecting rods out on my bench over here. I am going to be putting new rings in it. I already took two of the rings out, but they'll have to be cleaned up real good. And that's where we're at. We're going to be starting by pulling number one. That's actually number two. I've took a marker. It's a paint marker, and I've numbered them. And the dot on the piston always faces toward the front of the engine. The marker won't hurt it when it's time to put it back together. Found it weird that the connecting rod bolts are 11s, because usually most stuff's 10s and 12s and 13s on a GM engine. I don't use a impact to get these off. I don't like using impacts on engine parts. I'm going to be honing the engine cylinders too, because some of them have rust in them. There's nothing else wrong with them. It has nice cross hatching and everything inside, but I don't like the rust inside the top of the cylinder, so I'm just gonna hone it out just to get the rust out. Now you want to make sure and keep these exactly how they came out on there, because if not, it will cause bearing failure. So now that that's off, I'm going to spin the engine to push the piston all the way up, because it makes it easier to pull out. I'm just going to use a crescent wrench to spin the motor. It's no biggie. Again, I'm just getting the piston down as far as I can get it. And then usually when you keep going around, it just falls off of the crank. Yeah, see, there it is. That's off. Now I'll leave it all the way to one side so I can get my hand down in there and push the piston out the rest of the way. Usually they pop out pretty easy, but right now it's not. So I'll use the back of a hammer to press it down out of there a little bit. There it is. There we go. And that's number one out. And again, we'll mark it and put it in sequence. Remember to keep it the same way you got it out of there. Put the cap back on. So you see I kept it exactly the way it was. The bearings don't feel bad, but why not replace them while I got new ones, you know, it's right here. So put the cap back on. Then I'll set it in order over on the bench. Now all I gotta do is do the rest of them the same way, pop them out, put them on the bench. Alright, so now I have all the pistons out, and you can see it turns super smooth. There's no clicking of any kind, so there's no movement at all, so you know everything else in there is good. Now I have all the pistons on the table laid out. Got them numbered, as you can see. Now the next part's going to be to turn the motor over and then hone it. Now where I got this motor out of a junkyard, you can see where it was laying on its side. This is just surface rust. That's the only reason I'm using the glaze breaker, hone, whatever you want to call it. You can see down in there, there's good hatching still. And it's not even in every cylinder. It's in like every other cylinder. So use the glaze breaker to get it all out of there. Make it nice and clean for the new rings. Now, if you're like me and you just picked up a brand new hone, you're going to want to let it sit, because as you can see, in some Marvel Mystery Oil, which is what I'm using, it's soaking it up. And then we'll be ready to hone. That stuff right there smells great, by the way. It smells like Pepto. It don't taste like it. So now that your hone is soaked and you're ready to begin the process of honing out your cylinder, you wipe them out real good first, and that gets all the old oil out of it. Then next you're going to want to oil it down with whatever you're honing with, which is what I have in here, and you're going to want to wipe it down pretty good. It is a dirty job, be prepared. So. Now remember, all that stuff you're honing out of there is going straight onto your crank. So what you're going to want to do is, you don't want to turn that crank or nothing at this point. You're going to want to make sure, hone it, all of the pistons you got to hone, which is all of them. You should be honing every one of them. Now, when you want to keep it straight up and down, and then go, and you want to set your depth by going down, see where you hit, and then staying up from it. Remember to pull it out and check. Now we're just about there on that. So again, lots of lube. And do it again. Alright, now it's time to check. Now how we're going to do that, you want a good clean rag, you want to wipe out that cylinder. Remember, all we're doing is just getting the glaze off and knocking off where the rust line was. You can see that's all the stuff coming out. Now I can see that there's still some roughness up at the top here, but the rest of it's real good. But you don't want to do just the top. So now we're going to go at it again just a little bit more. You want to keep checking every time you do it. And it's a big mess, that's for sure. Alright. Get your hands clean, because Mr. Oil just feels nasty. Most stuff. Alright. Here we go again. Remember, straight up and down. Watch the pop out. Alright. Now the lube again. And then back in again.